Welcome back to another Winnovative Inside Small Biz CRM quick tip. Thanks for joining us. In this quick tip, we're going to talk about being able to create a custom field that acts as a link to a folder that you have on your computer or somewhere on your network. It doesn't even need to be on your computer. If you can access it somewhere on your network, it's a map drive, then you'll be able to open this folder. Now, the reason that you may want to do this, we know that ACT, of course, has the Documents tab, and we could store documents on here, whether directly as a copy or as a shortcut. That may not always be the best solution. One of the reasons being is that perhaps before you started using ACT, your company had created an extensive folder organization to use for project tracking or sales documents. Perhaps there's too many files in there to really make it feasible to put them in your ACT database. So creating this link, one of the advantages of it is you could still use your Documents tab if you are, and the way that you have been, but adding this custom link field also allows you to maintain your existing folder structure on the database as it has been, and therefore even folks who don't have ACT will still have access to the same files that you do. So the first thing that would need to happen in order to support this, and here we are in ACT 2010, and by the way, this link, or rather this tip, should work just fine and pretty much the same as you're going to see it here in any version of ACT from ACT 2005 right up to ACT 2010. So with very minimal differences, this should be implemented the same way. Now all we need to do is we need to go to the Tools menu, and we want to go to Define Fields right toward the top of the menu. And a couple of prerequisites need to occur here in order for us to be able to do this. First of all, you can't be a remote user. So if you're someone who's on a notebook, even if you're an administrator for that notebook in that database and you do synchronization, you can't apply changes on a remote database. It needs to be on the home office database. And even if you are on the home office database, as mentioned, you will need to be an administrative user, and also any of your fellow workers will need to be out of the ACT database. And also keep in mind that it's always best practice to have a backup of your database before you make these kinds of changes. So those things said and put aside, once we're in the Define Fields dialog box, we see that in ACT 2010 we're able to create custom fields for all these different types of record types in ACT. For our specific purposes today, we're going to do it on the contact record, the contact field. Click on Create New Field, and I want to call this Company Folder. And the key thing that we need to do here is we need to change the field type from being a character to a URL address. Okay, that's absolutely key. Now, as far as the field behavior, we're not necessarily always going to fill it in, so we want to be able to allow blank. Probably would not need to generate history, although we could. And primary field, you may or may not want to turn that on, and of course a drop down list really wouldn't apply. So we're going to leave the defaults, click Next, and we don't want to put any default values in or field formats because that's not applicable in this case. We probably do want to make it a little bit longer depending upon how deeply nested your file folders may be. 128 is pretty good, but maybe I'm going to say 156 just for a little bit more room, and click Next. We're not going to set any triggers, so we'll go ahead and we'll click Finish. ACT will go ahead and create that in our database depending upon the speed of your computer, how many records are in the database, those kinds of things. It may take a little while because it is updating the entire database, so the larger your database, the longer it will take. Okay, we see that it's completed now. It's added company folder into the list of field names, specifying that it's a URL address, and at this point we're done with what we need to do for custom fields. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Close. And now notice if you're in ACT 2010, it's going to say, hey, you've created a new field. Would you like to modify your layout? Previous versions will not do this, so you'll need to manually go in and customize your field. So I'm going to say no, just so all of our users understand how to do that. Now again, notice we've created a custom field, but we don't see it on the layout. It's not automatically added because ACT would have no way of knowing where you might want to put that new field. So in order to open up our fields, we go to Tools menu again. This time we say Design Layouts, and because we created a field that's of the contact type, we want to say Design the layout for contacts. And what ACT will do is open the layout designer for the current field or layout that we had open. So we may have more than one contact layout available to us, in our ACT database, and so whichever one was open is the one that is going to be visible when we come into the layout designer. Now, a best practice that I always like to do before I make changes again is I always immediately do a save as, particularly if I'm working with my default layouts that came with my database. I don't want to change those. It is possible that a layout can become corrupted, and if it is, and I ruin my default database, then I'm going to have a problem. Or even if it's not a default, something happens to it and then it gets such that I can't open it, it's going to affect my other users. So what I always like to do immediately is to give it a new name, and one of the things that I suggest is to leave the first part of the name as it stands, because people who are using, yourself or other users too, are going to be accustomed to seeing that name. But what I do is I like to add a hyphen and then V for version and a version number. So I'm going to call this ACT Demo version 2, making sure to save the extension as it was and click Save. So now if you notice at the top in the menu bar of our designer, it's updated the name, so that means I'm going to be modifying this layout and not the layout of the default database. So I've got my custom layout here. If anything goes wrong, not a problem. First thing I'm going to do is give myself a little bit more real estate by dragging down the tabbed area in here, because I want to add my field right in here underneath what I've got. So I go to my toolbar, click on Field, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time for purposes of what we're doing here, but I'm going to go like that. That's good enough for what we're doing here. And now what ACT's doing is it says, okay, you've drawn a field on the layout, what do you want to add to it? And we see the name for company folder in our list of fields. We want to have a label on it, so I'm going to go ahead and click Add, and ACT goes ahead and adds that. It's a little bit cramped. I can shrink this down just a bit, okay, and then use my arrows to move it over to neaten it up a little bit. And for right now, that's good enough. We can make it cleaner, but we're not really getting into making our layout pretty here. That's not our purpose for this. I'm going to go ahead and save, and then do File and Exit. Okay, and now I'm back in the main screen for ACT. Now, we notice we don't see our field. Remember, we had created a new layout, and notice that we're still on the layout we were in before creating it. So I need to go to the drop-down list and select the version 2 layout. Now, one caveat to be aware of, I see this happen from time to time, and sometimes it can be confusing. When you create a new layout, that list that shows here for your database may not get refreshed for whatever reason. ACT doesn't always realize that there's a new layout file, and so it won't present it in the list. Don't worry about that. Don't be concerned. It doesn't mean that your changes were lost. It just means that ACT didn't know it. So all you have to do is log out of ACT, log back in, and then that will refresh your list and you'll see the new layout. So I'll go ahead and I'll select that, and now we see, in fact, that our field is here, company folder. So it's not the prettiest, but again, for sake of purpose, what we're doing here, it works just fine. So now the last piece of this, which is pretty straightforward, is we don't want this to be, you know, a normal website link like we have up here. So the way that we tell ACT that this is going to be a link to a folder is we type in the word file, we do colon, and then forward slash forward slash. And so that's telling ACT it's not an HTTP, it's not a web address, but it's a file. And then we put in the actual location. So for this case, for me, I've created my folder already, and likely you have too. One thing that we don't have here is we don't have the ability to browse to our location, so we need to make sure we know where we're going. So I want to go to my C drive, so I do C:// and I have my clients folder, and then for this particular record I have a subfolder called Tech1. And there we go. Now, one of the things that's important, and I'm going to go ahead and click the save icon to save that change, is you need to have that closing backslash in order for ACT to be able to open your folder correctly. So let's see what happens now. I've clicked away, which generally you need to do on a URL folder or link once you've edited the data, and that allows it to become hot. We see that my little icon or my mouse is becoming a pointer. I click on that, and we see that it opens up. Okay, computer C:/ clients Tech1. Now, I don't happen to have anything in this folder, but if you did, and if you had subfolders, all of those things would be there. So if I go ahead and say create new folder, and I say subfolder, okay, Be good if I could spell it right. Let's do a rename subfolder. There we go. Okay, and let's close it just to test it one more time. So I click away and click on it, and there we see. So now we can continue to manage any of the files that were there, and we've created a hot link right on our contact, so we can always easily just click to that. So the key again is to create a custom field that's of URL type, and then as you populate that, proceed whatever your location is with file : //, and then ACT will know that that is a file or folder location, and will open that right up in Windows Explorer for you. So thanks for listening to this Winnovative Inside Small Business CRM Quick Tip. I hope you find that helpful, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.